I'm Victoria Chen, 29, founder of a $52 million AI medical diagnostics company that started in my tiny San Francisco apartment. For years, I've secretly paid my parents medical malpractice insurance, research funding, and more. Last week, when I finally revealed my success at our family year-end gathering, my father's face contorted with rage. "Get out, you have no right to touch patients' lives," he screamed. Despite the checks I'd been writing, they had no idea about my wealth, or the luxury condominium waiting for me overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. I simply nodded, said okay, and walked away. Sometimes silence speaks louder than arguments. Before I share my journey from rejection to vindication, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button to join me through this emotional roller coaster. I grew up in Pacific Heights, an affluent San Francisco neighborhood, where success was measured by medical degrees and hospital affiliations hanging on walls. My father, Daniel Chen, wasn't just any physician. He was a renowned cardiac surgeon at UCSF Medical Center and clinical professor, respected throughout California for his groundbreaking surgical techniques and published research. My mother, Catherine, was equally distinguished as head of pediatric oncology at UCSF and associate professor, known for her compassionate patient care and innovative treatment protocols. Together, they created a household where medical excellence wasn't celebrated. It was expected. From my earliest memories, dinner conversations revolved around patient cases, research findings, and medical breakthroughs. Victoria Isabella scored in the 98th percentile on her MCAT practice exam. "How did your computer programming project go?" my father would ask, barely concealing his disappointment that I was wasting time on technology instead of preparing for medical school. Isabella, my sister, was 4 years older and seemingly perfect. Perfect grades in pre-med, president of the Pre-Medical Society, and eventually acceptance to Harvard Medical School, followed by a prestigious law degree specializing in medical law. The path in our family was crystal clear and non-negotiable: excel in sciences, attend a top-tier university, pursue medical school, and enter the medical profession. If not medicine, then law focused on healthcare. Technology entrepreneurship wasn't just discouraged. It was practically heretical in a family devoted to healing. Yet something inside me marched to a different rhythm. While Isabella memorized anatomy charts and studied for the MCAT, I was building websites at age 10, creating online platforms for local businesses. By 13, I was the unofficial tech consultant for our entire neighborhood, developing custom software solutions and troubleshooting network issues for $25 an hour. I was already dreaming of artificial intelligence applications in healthcare, seeing technology as a way to help more patients than any single doctor ever could. "It's adorable that you have this little computer hobby," my mother would say, patting my head even as I counted my earnings from a successful software project. "But don't let it distract from your science courses. That's what will get you into medical school." My father was less gentle about my technological pursuits. "Playing with computers won't save lives." He'd scoff, barely glancing at the sophisticated diagnostic algorithms I was developing. "This phase needs to end before you apply to pre-med programs. Patients need real doctors, not computer programmers." Each family gathering became a celebration of Isabella's traditional medical legal success. When she was accepted to Harvard Medical School, my parents threw an elaborate celebration at the hospital, inviting their medical colleagues and department heads. Following in the true Chen tradition of healing and service, my father toasted while I sat quietly in the corner coding an AI diagnostic system prototype on my laptop, dreaming of how technology could revolutionize patient care. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. When that same year I won a National Young Innovators competition for my AI-assisted diagnostic tool concept, my parents didn't attend the awards ceremony. "We had critical surgeries scheduled," they explained, though I later discovered they'd attended a medical conference social event that same evening, based on photos I saw on the hospital's website. It wasn't that I couldn't succeed academically. When I applied myself to science courses, I earned excellent grades. But sitting in pre-med classes discussing theoretical concepts felt suffocating. When I could be out in the world developing real AI solutions that could help thousands of patients simultaneously, learning through hands-on programming and real-world applications rather than textbooks. By senior year of high school, the pressure reached its peak. Medical school preparation materials spread across our dining table while my father hovered expectantly. "Stanford has an excellent pre-med program. he suggested, pointing to the application. Or perhaps Harvard. Your grades are competitive, but my colleague in admissions might help secure your acceptance. I'm not going to medical school, I said quietly, looking him directly in the eyes. I'm not even going to college for pre-med. I want to develop AI medical diagnostic systems. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother dropped her surgical journal. My father's face flushed deep red with a mixture of shock and professional outrage. That is absolutely not an option, he finally said, each word carefully measured with surgical precision. No child of mine will abandon medicine for computers. Patients need doctors, not programmers. This ridiculous technology fantasy ends now. But for the first time, I didn't back down. I'd been saving money from my software consulting work and had already been accepted to several intensive programming boot camps. I had a detailed business plan drafted, connections with Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, and a burning determination that no medical school could contain. I'm going to start my own AI medical diagnostics company, I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. I'll develop systems that can help diagnose diseases faster and more accurately than human doctors. If it doesn't work out in 2 years, I'll reconsider medical school. My parents' response was swift and unified. Either I applied to medical school or nursing school, or I would receive no support. Financial, emotional, or otherwise. They were certain I would fail without their guidance, and the medical education they valued above all else. In their minds, healthcare was the exclusive domain of licensed medical professionals. 1 month after graduation, while my classmates prepared for pre-med programs, I moved into a tiny studio apartment in the Mission District. I was 19, terrified and completely on my own, but determined to prove that technology could revolutionize healthcare. My first apartment was barely 400 square feet, with a kitchenette so small I could touch both walls simultaneously. The rent consumed most of my savings, leaving just enough for a powerful computer setup, multiple monitors, and instant ramen that became both breakfast and dinner more often than I care to admit. But it was mine. A space where no one questioned my choice to pursue AI over anatomy or measured my worth by medical school acceptance letters. The business began in that tiny space, Medicore AI Solutions, an artificial intelligence platform designed to assist rural clinics and understaffed hospitals with diagnostic accuracy. The concept was revolutionary yet simple. Many talented healthcare providers in underserved areas had brilliant clinical instincts, but lacked access to specialist consultations or advanced diagnostic tools. I would build AI systems that could analyze patient symptoms, medical images, and lab results to provide preliminary diagnoses and treatment recommendations, helping these providers deliver better care to more patients. Those early days blur together in my memory. 18-hour coding sessions, manually training neural networks until my eyes burned, cold calling medical practices and facing rejection after rejection from doctors skeptical of AI diagnosis. Many nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if my parents were right after all, if medicine truly required a medical degree and human touch. My bank account dwindled dangerously low during those first few months as I invested everything in server costs and medical data licenses. "How's the computer business going?" my mother would ask during our increasingly rare phone calls. The quotation marks around business practically audible. UCSF has an excellent post-baccalaureate pre-med program for career changers. The first small victory came 3 months in, when Dr. Martinez at a rural clinic in Central Valley agreed to test my diagnostic AI system, and it correctly identified a rare cardiac condition that might have been missed otherwise. Then came Dr. Thompson's family practice, followed by 8 other small medical facilities. The contracts were modest, but they kept my servers running and validated my concept that AI could genuinely help healthcare providers save lives. While my business struggled to find its footing, family gatherings became exercises in endurance. At our New Year's celebration, 6 months after I'd moved out, the conversation revolved entirely around Isabella's medical residency and her transition into medical law. Dr. Williams says Isabella has the most thorough case analysis skills in the program, my father announced proudly, serving the elaborate meal my mother had prepared. When he finally turned to me, his expression shifted to barely concealed disappointment. And Victoria is still playing with computers instead of helping real patients. Medicore AI Solutions now serves 15 healthcare facilities with diagnostic accuracy rates exceeding, I began, trying to explain how my systems were actually helping patients. Dr. Kim's daughter just started her surgery residency at Mayo Clinic, my mother interrupted, passing the traditional dishes. Jennifer, imagine where you could be now if you'd chosen medicine. It was at a Silicon Valley healthcare technology conference that I met Dr. Sarah Martinez, not just a physician, but also a successful medtech entrepreneur and the first person who didn't immediately dismiss my lack of medical training. Instead, she asked insightful questions about my AI algorithms, diagnostic accuracy rates, and patient outcome improvements. You've got brilliant instincts for healthcare applications, she told me over coffee the following week. But your current model has limited scalability. Have you considered FDA approval pathways, medical device classification? That's where the real impact and revenue potential lies. Under Dr. Martinez's mentorship, Medicore AI solutions pivoted dramatically. Rather than focusing solely on simple diagnostic assistance, we began developing FDA-approved AI medical devices, advanced imaging analysis systems, predictive diagnostic algorithms, and comprehensive patient risk assessment tools. These products required more complex development and rigorous clinical testing, but commanded significantly higher prices and created substantial recurring revenue through software licensing and maintenance contracts. By year 3, I had 12 employees working from a modern office in Soma, including several physicians who'd joined our team. Our client list had grown to over 40 medical facilities, and for the first time I was paying myself a consistent salary that rivaled what junior doctors earned. It wasn't wealth by Silicon Valley standards, but I no longer survived on ramen noodles, and more importantly, our AI systems were genuinely improving patient outcomes. My family remained steadfastly unimpressed. At our family Christmas celebration that year, Isabella announced her acceptance into a prestigious medical law firm specializing in pharmaceutical litigation. My parents beamed with pride, immediately discussing her potential partnership track and the high-profile cases she'd be handling. When conversation briefly turned to my work, my father's dismissal was swift and cutting. Victoria helps hospitals with their computer systems, he explained to relatives, as if I ran a basic IT support service rather than a rapidly growing medical AI company that was actually saving lives. Later that evening, I overheard my mother talking to Dr. Kim in the kitchen. "We're still hoping she'll come to her senses," she whispered. "Such a waste of her intelligence. No medical degree, no clinical training, just playing with computers when she could be healing patients directly." I bit my tongue, knowing that trying to explain the complexities of AI diagnostic algorithms or our growing impact on patient care would fall on deaf ears. In their world, healthcare required medical licenses and clinical training. Technology was merely a tool, not a solution. The final insult came during Isabella's lavish law firm's celebration party, where I was seated at the colleagues' table, far from my immediate family. During his speech, my father praised his accomplished daughter, the medical attorney, and her dedication to protecting patient rights before raising his glass. He never once acknowledged his other daughter sitting in the corner, the one whose AI system had just received preliminary FDA approval for diagnostic accuracy that exceeded human specialists. On the drive home, I made a decision I would stop seeking their approval. My company would succeed or fail on its own merits, saving patients through technology rather than traditional medicine, and I would measure my worth by lives improved, not parental validation. That resolution would be tested sooner than I expected. When my father called the following month with news that would dramatically reshape our family dynamics and force them to confront their own limitations, the breakthrough came in my 4th year of business, when St. Mary's Regional Medical Center, a 200-bed hospital serving 3 rural counties, approached us about implementing our comprehensive AI diagnostic suite. Their existing diagnostic capabilities were severely limited, causing patients to travel hundreds of miles for specialist consultations, or wait weeks for accurate diagnoses. This wasn't just another small clinic client. This was the kind of contract that could transform Medicore AI solutions overnight and prove that AI could genuinely revolutionize healthcare access. They're considering several vendors, Dr. James Kim, my lead medical advisor, and former UCSF colleague of my parents, warned. Companies with much larger medical advisory boards and longer track records. Then we'll demonstrate better patient outcomes than all of them, I replied, already mentally preparing for sleepless nights of algorithm refinement and clinical validation. For 3 weeks, my team and I worked around the clock developing customized diagnostic protocols, creating comprehensive presentations with clinical data, and refining our pitch with real patient case studies. When we finally presented to St. Mary's Medical Board, I could feel my heart pounding as their chief of medicine asked pointed questions about diagnostic accuracy, liability, and FDA compliance. "You're a small operation without medical degrees on your founding team," he noted, reviewing our company profile. "What happens when our AI system misses a critical diagnosis at 2 a.m. on a Saturday? I'll personally monitor every case until your medical team is completely confident," I said without hesitation. "And our diagnostic accuracy rates exceed specialist physicians in the same conditions by 15%. I'll stake my company's reputation on every diagnosis." 2 days later, St. Mary's signed a $650,000 contract with Medicor AI Solutions for a comprehensive diagnostic AI implementation. That night, I took my entire team out for dinner at the most expensive restaurant in the city. The first real celebration in the company's history, and a moment when I felt we'd truly proven that technology could save lives as effectively as traditional medicine. The St. Mary's success opened doors throughout the healthcare industry. Suddenly, hospitals were coming to us, referred by satisfied physicians and administrators. We expanded to 25 employees, including several board-certified doctors, and moved to a state-of-the-art office in the heart of San Francisco's biotech district. Our annual revenue crossed the $2 million mark, and for the first time I allowed myself to believe that I had created something truly revolutionary, that could transform healthcare access for underserved communities. It was during this upswing that I received an unexpected call from my mother. "Your father's facing a malpractice lawsuit," she said, her voice uncharacteristically shaky. "A patient outcome that went badly. The insurance premiums are becoming impossible to afford. And my research funding was cut. The hospital is eliminating our entire pediatric research division." At 58, my father was too experienced to change specialties, but faced crushing financial pressure from malpractice insurance costs that had skyrocketed. My mother continued, hesitation in her voice. "And I've been struggling to continue my research without institutional support. The conference presentations and continuing education requirements. We're having trouble managing all the professional expenses." The implications were clear. My proudly self-sufficient medical professional parents were in financial trouble. Despite years of dismissing my career choices and insisting that only doctors could truly help patients, they now faced uncertainty while my AI healthcare company thrived. "How much do you need?" I asked simply, recognizing the irony that their daughter, who just played with computers, was now in a position to help. Through a complicated arrangement involving my company's legal team and medical consulting structures, I began covering my parents' malpractice insurance premiums without their direct knowledge. They believed a physician defense fund was providing temporary relief. Similarly, when my mother needed funding to continue her pediatric cancer research, I established a medical research grant through my lawyer that funded her work directly, disguised as funding from a healthcare technology foundation. My father eventually found additional part-time surgical work at a smaller hospital, but it paid a fraction of his former income while increasing his liability exposure. To supplement this, I created a legitimate medical consulting company that hired him to review AI diagnostic systems for medical accuracy, work that was actually valuable but provided him with dignity, and a substantial paycheck that matched his former surgical income. When Isabella's twins were born, their medical school savings funds appeared mysteriously in newly created accounts, courtesy of an investment from a medical technology scholarship foundation. That was actually my contribution to ensure they could pursue medicine if they chose. All the while, I maintained a relatively modest lifestyle despite my growing wealth. I drove a practical Tesla, lived in a comfortable but unassuming apartment, and gave vague answers about my company's success. The charade required careful management, separate business lines for family and professional interactions, redirected medical journal subscriptions, and an elaborate web of consulting arrangements, and medical grants to obscure the financial support I provided. "The AI business is doing fine," I would say during family dinners, downplaying our rapid expansion and the fact that we now served hospitals across 5 states and had saved thousands of patients through earlier, more accurate diagnoses. My mother would nod absently. That's nice, dear, before turning to Isabella to discuss her twins' developmental milestones, or her husband's latest medical law victories. The psychological toll of this double life grew heavier with each passing month. In business settings, I was Victoria Chen, confident CEO of a revolutionary medical AI company, profiled in medical technology publications and invited to speak at healthcare conferences, with strict instructions to exclude personal family details that might reveal my lack of medical training. At family gatherings, I was still the disappointing daughter, who had chosen computers over patients, technology over the sacred calling of medicine. After a particularly successful quarter where our AI systems had prevented several potential misdiagnoses and improved patient outcomes significantly, I finally allowed myself one visible indulgence: a beautiful luxury condominium in Pacific Heights with stunning views of the Golden Gate Bridge. I justified it as both an investment and a necessary sanctuary, somewhere I could be my authentic self, surrounded by the success I'd built through innovation rather than tradition, away from the judgmental eyes of my medical family and the pressures of proving that AI could match human clinical expertise. Just a rental property investment, I explained on the rare occasions family members inquired about my increasing absences during medical conference weekends. As Medicor AI Solutions approached its 6th year, our team had grown to over 180 employees, including 25 board-certified physicians who joined our mission, with a valuation approaching $52 million. We had developed revolutionary AI diagnostic platforms that were transforming how underserved hospitals and clinics handled complex medical cases, and acquisition offers from major healthcare corporations and tech giants had started arriving with alarming frequency. Through it all, my family remained oblivious to my success, even as they grew increasingly dependent on my covert financial support. My father, while accepting the mysterious consulting income and insurance assistance, began making increasingly snide remarks about my work, still playing with computers instead of helping real patients. He asked during a family dinner shortly after I'd turned down a $35 million acquisition offer from Google Health. Isabella's law firm just made her partner. My mother nodded proudly. The youngest medical law partner in the firm's history. Isabella herself had begun noticing discrepancies in my carefully constructed facade. Interesting smartwatch, she commented, eyeing my wrist during a holiday gathering. That looks like the new Apple Watch Ultra. Aren't those around $800? Pretty expensive for someone just doing computer consulting. Just a client gift, I lied, mentally kicking myself for the oversight, wondering how she'd react if she knew I'd been invited to Apple's exclusive healthcare developer summit. The exhaustion of maintaining this charade, while supporting my unappreciative family, finally reached a breaking point. As we approached another year-end family gathering, I made a decision it was time for the truth. No more hiding, no more secret support, no more diminishing my achievements to protect fragile medical egos. I would reveal everything at the family celebration. My company's revolutionary success, the extent of my financial support, and the true nature of my career's impact on patient care. After years of judgment about my choice to help patients through technology rather than traditional medicine, I was finally ready for my family to see me for who I really was. I never anticipated just how catastrophic that revelation would be, or how deeply it would challenge their fundamental beliefs about medicine and healing. By our 6th year, Medicor AI Solutions had evolved far beyond its humble beginnings. What started as simple diagnostic assistance had transformed into a healthcare technology powerhouse, specializing in AI-driven medical diagnosis and treatment optimization. Our flagship product, HealthCore Intelligence, revolutionized how medical professionals approached complex diagnostic challenges, turning vast amounts of patient data into actionable medical intelligence that even small rural clinics could leverage to provide specialist-level care. The medical community's response was extraordinary. Our client list expanded exponentially, with hospitals and medical practices willing to pay premium prices for access to our proprietary diagnostic algorithms that consistently outperformed human specialists in accuracy and speed. Revenue soared, and suddenly I found myself leading a company valued at $52 million, a number that sometimes felt surreal, especially when I remembered my parents' dismissal of technology's role in healthcare. Major healthcare corporations and tech giants took notice. First came the partnership inquiries from companies like Johnson & Johnson and Medtronic, then the acquisition offers. The initial bid from Amazon Health Services, $18 million, left me speechless. 6 months later, Google Health upped the ante to $35 million, seeing our AI platform as crucial to their healthcare ambitions. I turned them all down, much to the confusion of some team members and medical advisors. "That's generational wealth," said Dr. Patricia Wong, our chief medical officer, after I declined the fourth major offer. "Why not accept and use that capital to start an even larger healthcare AI venture?" The truth was complex and deeply personal. This company wasn't just a business to me. It was vindication, proof that technology could heal and help patients as effectively as traditional medicine, perhaps even more so. Selling felt like surrendering a piece of my identity and admitting that my parents might have been right about needing medical establishment approval. Beyond that, I genuinely believed our most life-saving innovations still lay ahead. While the company flourished, I maintained a grueling balancing act with my family. The financial support I provided had grown substantially over the years. My father's consulting salary now matched his former surgical income, while his malpractice insurance premiums were covered through hidden channels. My mother's medical research, now independent and privately funded, received substantial grants through my carefully constructed foundation. Isabella's children attended exclusive private schools, courtesy of their medical scholarship funds that were actually my contributions. All this generosity remained cloaked in elaborate financial structures designed to protect my family's pride while hiding my success. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was simultaneously the family disappointment for not pursuing medicine, and their anonymous benefactor, enabling their medical careers to continue. Healthcare Innovation Award goes to Medical AI Solutions. Read the Medical Technology Review headline that made me simultaneously proud and anxious. The accompanying article praised our company's revolutionary impact on patient care and diagnostic accuracy, thankfully using only a small professional headshot that wouldn't draw family attention to the extent of my success. My personal sanctuary became increasingly important as the pressures mounted. The luxury condominium in Pacific Heights represented more than just success. It was the one place where I could be completely authentic. The stunning view of the Golden Gate Bridge outside my windows, the warmth of California sunshine, and the absence of medical judgment created a peaceful contrast to my complicated life of hiding my achievements from the people who should have been proudest. During one particularly stress-filled period, I spent 3 consecutive weekends at exclusive medical technology conferences, drawing suspicious questions from my mother. "Another computer meeting?" she asked, her tone suggesting skepticism. "You seem to be traveling an awful lot for someone running a small technology consulting business." "AI development conferences," I replied vaguely, wondering how she'd react if she knew I'd just been the keynote speaker at the International Conference on AI and Medicine, discussing how our systems had improved diagnostic accuracy rates by 23% across our client hospitals. The dynamics with my father grew increasingly strained despite the financial lifeline I'd provided. His resentment seemed to deepen with each passing year, perhaps due to wounded pride from his malpractice struggles. Or maybe it was the cognitive dissonance of accepting help from the daughter whose choices he'd so thoroughly disapproved of, while maintaining his belief that only licensed physicians could truly practice medicine. "When are you going to get a real medical job?" he asked during a Sunday dinner shortly after I'd been featured in Healthcare Innovators Under 30 magazine. "You can't fix hospital computers forever. Patients need real doctors, not programmers." I'd long stopped trying to explain that I didn't fix hospital computers, that I ran a rapidly growing medical AI company, with hundreds of employees and innovative products that were genuinely saving lives through faster, more accurate diagnoses. Such corrections only seemed to aggravate his dismissal and challenge his fundamental belief that medicine required medical degrees. My mother, ever the diplomatic physician, maintained a careful neutrality that ultimately enabled my father's behavior. "Your father just wants you to help patients directly," she'd say after particularly hurtful comments, never acknowledging that perhaps I was already helping thousands of patients through my AI systems, just not in the traditional way she understood. Isabella's attitude shifted from dismissive to subtly envious as small signs of my wealth occasionally slipped through my careful facade. The designer handbag I absent-mindedly carried to a family gathering, the casual mention of a business trip to the Mayo Clinic for system implementation, The new Tesla Model S I explained away as a company lease for client meetings. Each detail fueled her growing suspicion. Computer consulting must be more lucrative than I thought, she remarked pointedly after noticing my expensive shoes at a family birthday celebration. Those look like they cost more than most residents make in a month. The strain of this double life began taking its toll on my health and mental well-being. I developed chronic insomnia, checking my phone at 300 a.m. to monitor our AI systems and ensure no financial transfers could be traced back to me. I maintained separate wardrobes, conservative, middle-income appropriate clothes for family functions, and the professional attire more suited to my actual position for medical conferences and client meetings. I even scheduled my medical appointments with different providers to avoid family members discovering I had the premium health insurance typically reserved for healthcare executives. As my 29th birthday approached, exhaustion settled deep in my bones. The company continued its meteoric rise. We now had partnerships with medical schools, and Forbes had included me in their Healthcare Disruptors section. Meanwhile, my father's most recent birthday card included a newspaper clipping about physician assistant programs at UCSF. During a late-night strategy session with my medical advisory board, I found myself staring out the window of our sleek biotech district office, while my colleagues debated our expansion into pediatric diagnostic AI. "Victoria!" Dr. Kim called, pulling me from my thoughts. "We need your input on the Children's Hospital implementation." I turned back to the room, to these medical professionals who respected my vision and valued my expertise despite my lack of medical degree, and made a decision. The charade had gone on long enough. It was time for honesty, whatever the consequences. "I'm going to tell my family everything," I announced to Dr. Martinez, my mentor and closest confidant, the next morning. At our year-end family gathering next week, her expression reflected concern mixed with understanding. "Are you sure that's wise? You've gone to extraordinary lengths to keep them from knowing the full scope of your success." "That's exactly the problem," I replied, feeling a strange mix of terror and relief. "I'm tired of hiding who I am and what I've built. If they can't accept that I'm saving lives through AI instead of traditional medicine, then perhaps it's time to reevaluate those relationships entirely." I spent the next week preparing, mentally rehearsing what I would say, gathering documentation of my company's growth and patient impact statistics, and even compiling records of the financial support I'd provided over the years. Part of me hoped that, faced with irrefutable evidence of my success and positive impact on healthcare, my family might finally offer the acknowledgement I'd long stopped expecting. The year-end celebration table was set at the exclusive restaurant my parents had reserved. The familiar family dynamics arranged perfectly as always. As I helped coordinate the final arrangements, I resolved that this would be the last holiday I spent diminishing myself to soothe others' medical egos. For better or worse, the truth about my revolutionary healthcare AI company would finally be served alongside the traditional celebration. The year-end family gathering at Boulevard, San Francisco's most prestigious restaurant, had always followed the same script father's detailed surgical case discussions, mother's latest pediatric research findings, Isabella's updates on high-profile medical litigation, and minimal interest in my computer consulting. This year would be fundamentally different. I arrived early, my stomach churning with anticipation, a portfolio of company information and patient outcome data tucked discreetly in my designer handbag. The familiar scent of expensive cuisine filled the air as my family settled into their reserved private dining room. "Need anything before we start?" I offered, setting down a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne I'd brought specifically for the revelation. "Oh, that's not necessary," my mother replied, barely glancing at the expensive bottle. "Isabella is bringing wine. She knows a sommelier who specializes in rare vintages from her law firm's wine collection." My father entered, medical journal tucked under his arm. "Victoria," he acknowledged with a brief nod before turning to my mother. "Is Isabella here yet? I want to tell her about the new cardiac surgery fellowship program Dr. Martinez mentioned." The scene was so familiar it was almost predictable. My presence a mere footnote to the anticipated arrival of my sister. Today that dynamic would change forever. Isabella arrived with her husband David and their twins, creating the usual flurry of medical and legal discussions. "Dr. Isabella Chen Morrison," my father announced proudly, as if her combined medical and legal credentials were a single, impressive title that represented everything our family valued. Dinner proceeded exactly as expected. Isabella detailed her latest pharmaceutical litigation case. While my parents listened with rapt professional attention, David discussed his recent publication in a prestigious medical ethics journal. The twins' academic achievements at their exclusive preparatory school were meticulously analysed for signs of future medical potential. When the conversation finally lulled, I took a deep breath and reached for the champagne. I thought we might celebrate something extraordinary today, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Oh? My mother looked confused, checking her phone. Is there a medical occasion we've forgotten? Did someone receive a research grant? Actually, yes, but not quite what you'd expect. I poured myself a glass of liquid courage. Medicore AI Solutions was valued at $52 million last month, and our diagnostic systems have now helped save over 15,000 patients. The silence that followed was absolute and suffocating. My father's fork paused midway to his mouth, suspended in disbelief. What are you talking about? Isabella finally asked, her tone suggesting I'd made some kind of absurd, inappropriate joke. My company. The computer business you've all dismissed for years. I withdrew several medical technology magazine articles from my bag, spreading them across the expensive linen tablecloth. We've revolutionized AI diagnostic medicine for underserved hospitals and clinics. We have over 180 employees, including 25 board-certified physicians, operating in 12 states, and I'm the founder and CEO. My father scoffed, picking up one of the articles with obvious skepticism. This can't be your company. Chen is a common surname, and you don't have any medical training. It's mine, Dad. I slid the Healthcare Innovation Review feature toward him, where my photo was unmistakable next to our company's logo. Everything I've built over the past 6 years while you were suggesting I pursue nursing school or physician assistant programs. My mother's face had gone pale, her medical training evident in how she carefully examined the documentation. But you never said anything. You drive that modest car. Your apartment seemed so ordinary when we visited. Because I didn't want you to know, I admitted, feeling years of suppressed frustration rising. I was tired of being judged for helping patients through technology instead of traditional medicine. Isabella examined the articles with growing disbelief, and what looked like professional jealousy. This says you turned down a $35 million acquisition offer from Google Health. That can't be accurate. It was actually $37 million by the time negotiations concluded, I corrected. I declined because our AI systems are worth more independently, and because I believe we can help more patients by remaining autonomous. Rather than the pride or even grudging medical respect I'd hoped for, my father's expression darkened with something approaching professional outrage. So you've been lying to us for years while playing doctor without a license? No more than you've been lying to yourselves, I countered, feeling my carefully controlled composure beginning to crack, believing I was struggling when I was thriving, dismissing my career while accepting my financial support, insisting only licensed physicians can help patients, while my AI systems consistently outperform human diagnostic accuracy. What financial support? My mother asked, confusion and growing concern evident in her voice. This was the moment of absolute truth. I pulled out another folder containing detailed financial records. Your malpractice insurance premiums have been paid by my medical technology foundation for the past 4 years. Mom's independent research funding that mysteriously appeared. That was me. Dad's lucrative consulting contract reviewing AI medical systems. I created that position specifically for you. Isabella's children's private school tuition, also funded through my educational grants. The color drained from my father's face as he stared at the documents. Bank transfers, foundation grants, consulting agreements. All the elaborate financial architecture I'd constructed to help them while protecting their pride and maintaining my own sanity. This isn't possible, he whispered. But the evidence before him was irrefutable and professionally documented. My mother began crying quietly, her medical training warring with her maternal emotions. Why wouldn't you tell us? Why hide something so significant? Would you have accepted direct help from your failure of a daughter? I asked softly. The one who chose AI over anatomy? The disappointment who refused medical school? The one you believed couldn't possibly help patients without a medical degree? Isabella's expression had transformed from shock to something uglier, professional resentment mixed with family rivalry. So while I was working 100-hour weeks in medical school and law school, you were secretly becoming what, some kind of healthcare technology mogul? While you were following the path you wanted, I corrected. I was following mine. The difference is, I respected your choices and even financially supported them. My father pushed back from the table abruptly, the chair legs scraping harshly against the restaurant's hardwood floor. You expect us to believe you built this medical empire legitimately, without education, without proper medical training. What are you really doing, Victoria? Some kind of medical fraud? Practicing medicine without a license? The accusations stung more than I'd anticipated. After years of building a legitimate, revolutionary healthcare company, that was genuinely saving lives. My own father's first assumption was medical malpractice and professional fraud. Everything I've built is completely legitimate and FDA approved, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady despite the hurt. You could have known that years ago if you'd ever bothered to actually listen. When I tried to explain my work instead of dismissing it as computer games. If this is true, my mother interjected, her physician's voice small and uncertain. Why live so modestly? Why hide your success? Why not pursue proper medical credentials? Because every time I showed even small signs of success, it was dismissed or treated with suspicion, I explained, feeling years of suppressed pain emerging. Expensive shoes meant I must be in debt. A nice car was assumed to be financially irresponsible. It was easier to hide everything than to constantly justify my choices to people who'd already decided I was a failure for not becoming a doctor. The conversation deteriorated rapidly. My father, confronted with evidence that contradicted his 6-year narrative about medicine and credentials, grew increasingly agitated and professionally threatened. All that potential wasted, my mother lamented, shaking her head. You could have had a real medical profession. With a degree, clinical training, direct patient care, respectability in the medical community. I have a real profession that helps patients, I countered. One that employs hundreds of people and serves thousands of healthcare providers, who can now save more lives. Isabella, perhaps most threatened by this revelation that challenged her own professional achievements, twisted the knife further. Some of us worked hard the proper way, Victoria. We didn't take shortcuts around medical education and licensing requirements. Shortcuts? I laughed incredulously, feeling my control finally snapping. I've worked 18-hour days for 6 years building this company. I've revolutionized diagnostic medicine. There were no shortcuts, just innovation that you refused to recognize. My father slammed his hand on the table, rattling the expensive china and drawing stares from other diners. Enough. I don't know what game you're playing or what you're trying to prove with these fabrications, but I won't sit here and listen to more lies. Everything I've told you is true and medically verified, I said quietly. Everything you can independently verify through medical journals and hospital outcome studies if you choose to. He stood trembling with what I now recognized as fear rather than anger. Fear that his worldview about medicine and healing was crumbling, that the daughter he dismissed had succeeded beyond his comprehension outside the sacred path of medical licensure he'd prescribed. If you've done what you claim, he said, voice shaking with professional and personal outrage, then you've done it by turning your back on everything this family values: medical education, clinical training, patient care ethics, professional standards. I've only turned my back on arbitrary limitations. That prevented me from helping more patients more effectively, I replied. That's when he said the words I'll never forget, his face contorted with a mixture of medical rage and paternal humiliation. Get out of here. You have no right to touch patients' lives without proper medical training. You're nothing but a computer programmer playing doctor. No child of mine would endanger patients this way. My mother gasped but said nothing to contradict him. Isabella watched with a strange satisfaction in her eyes, as if my father had finally voiced what she'd been thinking. I looked around the table at my father's medical outrage, my mother's silent complicity, my sister's professional resentment, and felt a peculiar calm settle over me. For years I'd craved their approval, orchestrated my life to both support and appease them. In that moment, I realized how futile and self-destructive it had been. Okay, I said simply, gathering my documents and standing with dignity. If that's how you feel about technology saving lives. Victoria, my mother began, but I raised my hand to stop her. No, it's fine. I've spent years trying to be both the daughter you wanted and the person I actually am. I'm done with that impossible task. I'd rather save patients through AI than seek approval from people who can't accept innovation. I walked toward the restaurant exit without looking back, my father's words echoing in my ears. As I stepped outside into the crisp San Francisco evening air, I felt something unexpected. Not heartbreak, but relief. The charade was finally over. That night, in my luxury condominium overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, I allowed myself to fully process what had happened. There were tears, certainly, but also a growing sense of liberation from expectations that had never served me. The next morning, I woke with clarity and purpose. It was time to live authentically, without apology or medical approval. The family I'd been born into had rejected me at my moment of greatest vulnerability and professional triumph. Now I would build something better. A life without pretense, surrounded by medical professionals and innovators, who valued me for who I really was and what I'd accomplished. The morning after our year-end family confrontation brought an unusual sensation: lightness. Despite the emotional devastation of the previous evening, I woke in my luxury condominium feeling as though a crushing weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't need to maintain elaborate lies or diminish my medical technology achievements. The truth, however painfully received, was finally in the open. My first call was to Michael Rodriguez, the attorney who had managed my family's covert financial support. "I need you to terminate all medical funding arrangements immediately," I instructed, my voice calm and decisive. "The malpractice insurance payments, the research grants, the consulting contract, the education trusts, all of it." "Are you certain?" Michael asked, concern evident in his voice. "This represents significant financial adjustments for your family's medical practices and research." "I'm certain," I replied. "They've made their position clear about my lack of medical credentials. I won't continue supporting people who view me as a computer programmer playing doctor." Next, I contacted Dr. Martinez, outlining my plans to relocate permanently to our satellite office in Palo Alto. "Call a company-wide meeting for Monday morning. I'll announce the organizational changes then." The weekend passed in a flurry of practical arrangements. My San Francisco lease would end in 30 days. Perfect timing for a fresh start. I arranged for movers to pack my belongings, while I flew to Palo Alto to prepare my new residence for permanent occupancy. My phone buzzed constantly, with messages from my mother and, surprisingly, Isabella. I read none of them. This boundary was long overdue and medically necessary for my own well-being. Monday's company meeting brought expected shock, but also overwhelming support from my medical and technical team. As many of you know, I've been considering expanding our Palo Alto research facility. I explained to the assembled staff. I'll be relocating there permanently and establishing our primary AI development center. Our San Francisco operations will continue unchanged under Dr. Kim's medical leadership, with me connecting remotely and visiting weekly. Rather than resistance, I was met with understanding and professional support that my family had never provided. Several key team members, including physicians and engineers, immediately volunteered to relocate to Palo Alto to help establish the new Medical AI Research Center. "We're with you, Victoria," said Dr. Sarah Chen, our Chief Medical Officer. "Wherever you lead this company's mission to revolutionize healthcare, we'll follow." That support contrasted sharply with my family's reaction to the financial changes. 3 days after our confrontation, my father called, his voice tight with barely controlled medical rage. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded without preamble. "The insurance company says our malpractice payments were declined. My consulting contract is suddenly terminated." "Yes," I confirmed calmly. "I've ended all financial support effective immediately." "You can't do this," he sputtered. "Your mother's research funding." "My surgical practice." "I can and I have," I interrupted. "You made it abundantly clear that you want nothing to do with money from someone playing doctor without proper medical training." "I'm respecting your professional judgment." He began backpedaling immediately, his medical pride warring with financial reality. "Now, Victoria, you misunderstood. I was upset, but family is family." "Exactly. And family doesn't accuse family of medical fraud. Family doesn't dismiss 6 years of hard work as computer games. Family supports each other's different paths to helping patients instead of demanding conformity to medical school." The call ended with his threats to report my company to medical boards. Empty threats, as Michael assured me. All our AI systems were FDA approved and operated within strict medical device regulations. The calls and messages continued, evolving from angry medical accusations to desperate pleas. The reality of their financial situation was setting in rapidly. My mother's tearful voicemails detailed her research funding concerns and patient care worries. Isabella's messages turned from condescending to conciliatory, suddenly interested in my impressive medical technology innovations. I read and listened to them all but responded to none. For the first time, I was prioritizing my own well-being over their medical expectations and financial demands. Palo Alto welcomed me with innovation-friendly sunshine and endless technological possibilities. My new luxury apartment, previously a corporate housing option, became a true home base for revolutionary medical AI development. I redecorated, replacing the impersonal corporate decor with meaningful medical technology art and comfortable furnishings that reflected my actual achievements rather than the modest aesthetic I'd maintained for family appearances. The new Medicore AI Solutions Research Center opened in downtown Palo Alto within 6 weeks, a state-of-the-art facility with cutting-edge medical simulation labs and an open concept design that encouraged collaboration between physicians and engineers. Several key team members relocated, while others embraced the hybrid medical research arrangement, freed from the constant anxiety of family discovery. I found myself engaging more authentically with the medical technology community. I introduced myself to colleagues as the founder and CEO of a revolutionary medical AI company, rather than vaguely mentioning computer consulting. I joined the Silicon Valley Healthcare Innovation Council and began building genuine connections with fellow medical technology pioneers. At a Stanford Medical School AI symposium, I met Dr. Marcus Thompson, a physician entrepreneur who asked thoughtful questions about my diagnostic algorithms without a hint of skepticism about my lack of medical degree. "That's groundbreaking work," he said when I explained our patient outcome improvements. "Have you considered applications for emergency medicine protocols? There's tremendous life-saving potential in rapid diagnosis." Our conversation flowed easily, touching on medical AI ethics, patient care innovation, and our shared passion for revolutionizing healthcare access. When he asked me to dinner the following evening, I accepted without my usual hesitation about what might slip about my complicated family medical background. "I'd love to," I said simply, realizing how refreshing it felt to enter a relationship with complete transparency about my medical technology career from the start. As weeks turned to months, the desperate communications from my family gradually tapered. The initial flurry of daily calls dwindled to weekly, then occasional messages. The tone evolved from demanding medical authority to pleading financial necessity, culminating in letters that arrived at my new company address, my father apparently having researched our medical technology publications. The first letter was accusatory. "After all we've done for your education, this is how you repay us, by abandoning your family in their medical hour of need." The second, received 2 weeks later, "Attempted medical guilt. Your mother's pediatric cancer research is suffering without proper funding. Is this the daughter we raised to help heal children?" The third, arriving a month after that, offered a conditional medical olive branch. "Perhaps we were hasty in our medical judgment. If you would reconsider your rash financial decisions, we could discuss your healthcare technology success more thoroughly." I read each one carefully, recognizing the manipulative patterns that had defined our relationship for years. None acknowledged the fundamental issue: their inability to accept my medical contributions on my terms rather than theirs, or to recognize that AI could help patients as effectively as traditional clinical practice. Meanwhile, my life in Palo Alto flourished beyond my wildest medical technology dreams. The company continued its growth trajectory, launching new AI diagnostic products and expanding into international medical markets. My relationship with Marcus deepened into something genuine and supportive, built on mutual respect for medical innovation rather than false pretenses about credentials. Most importantly, I found a community of fellow medical technology entrepreneurs who understood the journey I'd traveled. At a healthcare innovation retreat, I was surprised to discover how many successful medical AI founders had similar stories of family rejection or professional dismissal. My parents didn't speak to me for 2 years after I left medical residency to start my telemedicine company, shared Dr. Jessica Park, founder of a remote patient monitoring firm. Now they refer patients to our platform. "My father called my medical AI startup fantasy and refused to even discuss it," added Dr. Alex Kumar, whose diagnostic imaging AI had recently received FDA breakthrough designation. "He sends me medical journal articles about our technology now, as if he supported me all along." These conversations helped me realize that my experience, while painful, wasn't unique in the medical technology world. The path of healthcare innovation often diverged from traditional medical expectations, creating rifts that sometimes healed with professional success and sometimes didn't. 6 months after my relocation, I received a text from Isabella. That was different from the others, I'm sorry. Not for everything, not yet, but for not seeing what you were building for patients, for not respecting your healthcare innovations. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was the first genuine acknowledgement from any family member. I responded with a simple thank you for that, opening the door just slightly to whatever medical understanding might come next. As I stood on my apartment balcony that evening, watching the sunset paint Silicon Valley in brilliant oranges and pinks, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The painful confrontation at our family gathering had been necessary, the catalyst for finally living authentically as a medical technology innovator. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Still on for dinner? I'm thinking that new farm-to-table place near Stanford Medical. I smiled, typing back perfect. Meet you there at 7. I have exciting news about our pediatric diagnostic AI breakthrough. This was my life now. Honest, unburdened, and entirely focused on my own medical technology mission. The future stretched before me, full of possibilities to help patients unbounded by others' medical expectations or licensing limitations. For the first time, I was truly free to revolutionize healthcare. 6 months into my new life in Palo Alto, Medicore AI Solutions had not just survived the family transition, it had revolutionized medical diagnostics beyond my wildest dreams. Our Palo Alto Research Center became the company's innovation hub, while our San Francisco medical operations maintained clinical partnerships under Dr. Kim's physician leadership. Our valuation had climbed to nearly $68 million, with interest from major healthcare corporations seeking to integrate our AI systems into their medical networks. But the true transformation wasn't in business metrics. It was deeply personal. Walking into our cutting-edge medical AI facility each morning, I no longer carried the burden of maintaining elaborate facades or diminishing my healthcare achievements. My wardrobe of deliberately modest attire gave way to professional clothes that reflected my actual success and medical technology leadership. The constant vigilance against accidentally revealing my true circumstances disappeared, replaced by an energizing authenticity about my mission to revolutionize patient care. You seem completely different, observed Dr. Martinez during our weekly medical advisory meeting. More confident, more focused on patients. She was absolutely right. For the first time since founding the company, I was fully inhabiting my role as CEO and medical technology innovator without apology or concealment about my non-traditional path. This newfound authenticity extended far beyond work. My relationship with Marcus deepened as weeks turned to months, built on honest foundations of shared medical innovation rather than carefully constructed half-truths about my background. I've dated physicians with traditional credentials. Marcus told me one evening as we walked through Stanford's medical campus, "But you're the first who's genuinely revolutionizing patient care through AI. It's refreshingly innovative." We laughed, but his observation highlighted the peculiarity of my previous life. In trying to maintain family medical relationships, I'd created barriers to forming authentic new connections with fellow healthcare innovators. As my personal life flourished, I found myself reflecting on the medical education journey that had caused such family conflict. Despite my success without formal medical training, I recognized its value for clinical practice, just not the universal requirement my parents had insisted upon for all healthcare contributions. This realization inspired the Chen Medical Innovation Foundation, a grant program providing funding to healthcare entrepreneurs regardless of medical educational background. Whether medical school graduates, engineering PhD holders, or self-taught programmers, recipients shared one qualification: a brilliant medical technology concept and the determination to improve patient outcomes. Medical innovation comes in many forms. I explained at the Foundation launch event, our goal is supporting healthcare advancement wherever it emerges, not just from traditional medical school paths. The Foundation became my passion project, allowing me to mentor young medical technology entrepreneurs facing the same skepticism I'd encountered. Particularly rewarding was supporting young women in healthcare AI, who often battled both gender bias and medical credential prejudice. My parents think medical AI is for doctors with computer science degrees, shared Dr. Priya Patel, our first Foundation recipient, developing an innovative cardiac monitoring AI system. They want me to pursue traditional cardiology instead of medical technology. Build it anyway, I advised. Patient outcomes have a way of changing medical minds. My own family remained a complicated work in progress. After months of emotional messages that ranged from guilt-inducing to conciliatory, my father finally sent a letter that resembled an actual medical apology. "I won't pretend to understand the path you've chosen in healthcare," he wrote in his precise surgical handwriting, "but I can no longer deny its impact on patient care." My reaction at our family gathering was unworthy of both of us as healers. The words I spoke came from medical fear and professional pride, not truth about helping patients. I am sorry for that, though I understand if that apology comes too late. It was the first communication that didn't include demands for resumed financial support or conditions for medical reconciliation. I read it several times, recognizing the difficulty such an admission must have caused a traditional physician. After careful consideration, I sent a measured response. "Thank you for your letter." The words hurt deeply, but more painful was the lifetime of dismissal that preceded them. I'm building a life based on mutual respect for different ways of helping patients. If you're interested in being part of that life, it needs to be on those medical terms. We weren't reconciled, but a door had opened slightly to understanding different paths in healthcare. My mother called soon after, her voice tentative and unfamiliar without its usual medical certainty. "We've had to make many professional adjustments," she explained, referring to their financial situation. "Your father is taking more emergency surgery calls at the county hospital. I've had to scale back my pediatric research to part-time consulting." I listened without offering solutions, allowing them the dignity of managing their own medical circumstances, just as I had when they offered no support for my early healthcare technology attempts. This wasn't revenge, it was establishing healthy boundaries that should have existed years earlier. Isabella and I established a cautious communication pattern. Her initial apology text evolved into occasional phone calls, awkward at first, but gradually more genuine. The competitive dynamic that had defined our relationship since childhood slowly transformed into something resembling mutual professional respect. "The twins asked about their AI inventor aunt yesterday," she mentioned during one call. "Apparently, Sarah wants to create a medical app for her science fair project and thinks you're the expert to consult." It was a small thing, but significant. Acknowledgement of my expertise in my chosen medical field rather than dismissal of its legitimacy. As my company continued growing, I found myself creating a different kind of family, a chosen one of medical professionals, engineers and innovators who supported each other without conditional approval based on degrees. Sunday dinners at my apartment became a tradition, gathering a diverse group of healthcare pioneers who accepted each other's different paths and celebrated various forms of patient care innovation. "To authentic healthcare innovation," Marcus toasted at one such gathering, "a year after my relocation, and to finding your medical tribe wherever they may be." The contrast with my family's year-end disaster couldn't have been starker. Here was genuine warmth without medical judgment, connection without credential conditions, shared passion for improving patient outcomes through any effective means. Dr. Martinez, my first medical mentor, visited from San Francisco and observed this transformation with deep satisfaction. "I knew you had the medical technology acumen," she told me, "but watching you build this life, this healthcare community, that's the real achievement for patient care." Her words crystallized an important realization. Success wasn't merely measured in company valuations or medical industry recognition. True wealth encompassed the freedom to live authentically, surrounded by people who valued you for exactly who you were and the patients you helped. 2 years after that fateful family confrontation, I received an unexpected call from my father. "We're planning to visit the Bay Area next month," he said, his voice lacking its former medical authority. "Your mother has always wanted to see Stanford Medical School. Perhaps we could meet for coffee while we're there." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it represented something important initiative from their side. Without financial motivation, and acknowledgement of my proximity to prestigious medical institutions. After consideration, I agreed to a brief meeting in a neutral location. When the day arrived, I entered the Palo Alto Cafe with measured expectations. My parents looked older, my father's confident surgical posture somewhat diminished, my mother's carefully maintained professional appearance showing signs of financial constraint. The conversation was stilted at first, Safe topics about California weather and medical school architecture. Eventually, my father cleared his throat and addressed the elephant in the room. Your company was featured in the New England Journal of Medicine last month, he said quietly. The patient outcome study was impressive. Coming from him, it was a monumental medical admission. Thank you, I replied simply. I've been thinking a lot about medical education, he continued hesitantly. Perhaps I've been too rigid in my definition of what constitutes valuable healthcare training. It wasn't a complete reversal of his lifelong medical beliefs, but it represented growth I hadn't thought possible from such a traditional physician. My mother reached across the table, briefly touching my hand. We're proud of what you've built for patients, Victoria, she said quietly, even if we didn't understand how to show it medically. The meeting lasted just under an hour. Not enough to heal years of medical dismissal and professional judgment, but perhaps a beginning. As we parted, I felt neither the desperate need for their medical approval that had driven me for years, nor the angry rejection that had followed our confrontation. Instead, I felt compassion for their limited perspective on healthcare innovation and gratitude for having found my own path to helping patients despite it. Back at my apartment that evening, I walked through the Stanford campus, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The business success was significant, certainly, but the personal growth was the true achievement. Learning to define my worth by patient outcomes and my own medical technology standards, rather than external validation from traditional physicians. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting Silicon Valley in brilliant colors. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus, followed by notifications of a major children's hospital contract signing and a reminder about tomorrow's Medical AI Ethics Committee meeting. This was my life now, rich with purpose, medical innovation, and authentic healthcare connections. The path hadn't been what I expected or what my medical family had prescribed. It had been messier, more challenging, and ultimately more rewarding than any traditional medical route could have offered. In choosing my own direction and staying true to my vision of helping patients through AI, despite constant doubt from those closest to me, I discovered a fundamental truth. Success in healthcare isn't measured by medical degrees on walls or approval from traditional physicians. It's measured by the courage to define and pursue your own vision of patient care, and the actual lives improved through your work. As I watched the sun sink below the horizon, I felt profound gratitude for the difficult journey that had led to this innovative shore. The medical rejection that once seemed devastating had ultimately freed me to build something more authentic, both in healthcare technology and in life, touching thousands of patients I never could have reached through traditional medicine.